All right. Hey, everyone. We are back. My name is Nealy Harding, and I am with the Sanders Group at Hometown Realty.
Hi, I'm Tyler Yeatman. I'm with CNF Mortgage.
Hey, Tyler.
Hi.
So today's topic is going to be all about qualification. Buying a home, it takes a lot. I mean, you really have a lot to wrap your head around, and especially as a first-time home buyer. There's so many steps involved, and some people may be anxious with having such an expensive purchase to make. So I always recommend that buyers have a realtor to represent them. It's important to have someone who's going to be looking out for your interest and your best part about this whole thing is that you don't pay for that representation. Now, the home buying process can be broken up into phases, which makes it a lot easier to approach. And the first step in that phase is qualification. So think of it this way. You wouldn't bake a cake without making sure you had all the ingredients first, right? And another thing, so even before you start looking at homes, you want to make sure that you know not only what you qualify for, but also what you're comfortable with as a monthly mortgage payment. So, Tyler, when people contact you and they're just starting off that process to get qualified, what does that look like?
Absolutely. No, and I think you bring up a ton of good points about having your own realtor representation. I think that's extremely important. And then starting off the process with the pre-qualification, that's important as well. Typically, when someone calls me for the first time, whether it's first time home buyer or um, anyone in the market to buy a house for that matter, I usually like to give a broad 30,000 foot view of the process that they're going to go throughout the process. And then at that point, typically I direct them to my website where they can fill out an application. And that really gives us everything that we need in order to be able to tell you what products you qualify for, and then also to show you those products and to make sure that you're comfortable with them. That's the big thing. A lot of times people may qualify for a certain amount, but we want to make sure that you're comfortable with that amount too, from a cash to close perspective, from a mortgage payment perspective, and et cetera.
Right. So when they go through that, some people are a little bit more organized than others. What type of documentation should they have on hand to make it a smoother process?
Yeah, I mean that good question too. Your normal stuff definitely helps. Your W-2s, your pay stubs, your last 2 months worth of bank statements. All of that stuff definitely helps to have on hand. It's not necessarily required, um, but it definitely helps to have it on hand. Our application specifically, it is intuitive. So if you say, for example, that you work at McDonald's, it will ask you for a pay stub and a W-2 from McDonald's. So it's nice to have that stuff on hand because it helps us evaluate the products for you and make sure you're going to qualify
Okay. Now, there's lots of talk between whether you need to be a pre-approved or pre-qualified. What's the difference between the two?
for them. Absolutely. So, the big difference is a pre-qualification is basically you've keyed in information or had a conversation with a loan officer and they pulled your credit and basically taken everything else for face value. How you either input it or how you told them over the telephone. A pre-approval is where you've taken it that one step further, um, like in our application, for example, where you've provided the W-2s, you've provided the bank statements, the pay stubs, and the loan officer has had the chance to actually review those items. And it's just basically a little bit more in-depth process. And a lot of times it'll make your offer stand out over, say, someone else's if you're in a competitive situation. So it can be a very important piece, and it can be a key advantage for you as a buyer.
Okay, awesome. And let's talk about timelines because that's always important. How much time does folks need to allocate for this process?
So as far as a lot of it's going to depend on them, honestly. The keyed in information, most people can do that in 15 or 20 minutes. It's not bad entering in the information.
Okay.
Now, some people have all their information, their W-2s, their pay stubs, they have it all saved on their computer and it's ready to go, and they push a button and it's uploaded and they're done. Some people, that's not necessarily the case. You got to gather everything up, you find a way to scan it, take pictures, etc. So it really just depends. We do try and make it obviously as easy as possible. We don't have to get that stuff from every single client all the time. So if we don't need it, we try not to ask for it. We try to be as customer service oriented as we can. With that being said, a lot of the first time homebuyer products, a lot of them do have income limits. And the last thing we want to do is not do our due diligence for you guys and make sure that you are, under those income limits. So it does sometimes require a little heavier documentation load than say another loan type. But in the end, it's worth it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. And if you're in need of a lender or a professional realtor, give us a call. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye.